was impossible. It facilitated a conversation with my father, who is on the exact political opposite spectrum of me, because I called him. Now, I love my father dearly, and because I love my father, we've agreed not to talk about politics if we would like to continue to like each other. You might wonder why this matters. My father is, or was, I should say, a state patrolman in Nebraska for my entire life. In the late 1970s, early 80s, Nebraska, where I grew up, started a SWAT team, and my father was selected to go train with the FBI in Annapolis, where he learned to become a sniper and a bomb technician and a hostage negotiator. And he worked with the SWAT team for the rest of his career, and he trained the SWAT officers at the end of his career. So I called my father and did something I never thought I would do. I called my dad on the phone and I said, I need to talk politics with you. He was quiet for a minute. I said, hey, just put on your trooper hat and answer me this question. I said, I need you to give me an opinion on a bill. And I explained to my dad that in this bill, with its qualified immunity, would make guns more available to be more broadly used in schools to keep students safe. And he was quiet for a minute, and my father said to me, guns don't belong in schools. My dad is my hero. I love him and I trust him. And I listened to him for a good, 20, 25 minutes on the phone while he laid out for me why he thought guns didn't belong in schools. Centered around his conversation mostly centered around a few things. The first being that when an officer shows up on a scene, the officer's first job is to stop a threat. And they're getting information on the way to the scene to stop that threat. This would allow the threats in our school, or the teachers in our school with guns, to be anonymous. My dad said, when I get to a school and I walk in that, or I go in that school, my gun's drawn, I'm trying to stop a threat. When I come around a corner and I see a gun, the gun is the threat. I don't know if the shooting that I'm going to hear is going to be a teacher or a school staff person with a gun firing on an intruder, or an intruder firing on students. All I want to do is stop that threat. He said, Molly, in my opinion, this makes guns in schools dangerous for both teachers and students, and ultimately the officers responding to the call, because now there are more guns. Like I said, my father spent the latter part of his career training officers. He said to me the officers train for these types of high-risk situations often, more than once a month, and even with frequent and robust training, some officers still do not always respond well. He explained it to me as a third and a third and a third. He said a third of officers, even with robust training, are really, really super competent, some fall in the middle, and some never really master those competency skills. When we talk about annual training for teachers or staff that is armed, annual training, the SWAT officers that my dad was training were training twice a month, and some of them still weren't competent. When I think about how my classroom is arranged, if I am carrying a gun and there's a threat at the door, the thing that stands between me and that threat are 26 kids that I would take a bullet for. But I could never live with myself if I put a bullet in one of them. The primary role of educators is to nurture. and to teach and create a supportive environment, and the likelihood that a teacher would be able to respond to a situation as an enforcement official would be slim. That was my father's opinion. The one last thing I want to say is that the training that I have received thus far in responding to an armed intruder in my school, in active shooter drills, is to be with my kids and keep them safe. I've been trained to get them out of the situation if the threat is not near them, and to shelter in place if there's no safe way out. I've taught my kids how to stack chairs against the drawers. I've taught them how to barricade. I've taught them how to do all manner of things, and we have practiced running into the parking lot. My question becomes then, if I am armed, if I choose to be armed, what then is my role? Is my role to stay with my kids and keep them safe, or does my role then become to go after an intruder? And then what happens to my kids? I don't know the answer to those questions. I do know that I trust my father, and I do know that we all want our kids in Iowa to be safe in schools. The man that is way more on the Republican side of the aisle than my side of the aisle tells me guns don't belong in school. I'm gonna listen to him.